The Five of Pentacles is one of the most dismal cards in the deck. Here we see two people who are poor, injured, wearing tattered clothes, and trudging barefoot through the snow. Stay tuned to learn how to handle this card when it shows up in a reading. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we'll be learning the tarot deck one card at a time. Today's video is about the Five of Pentacles. This video will begin with a short description of the card. Next, I'll briefly explain what this card means when it appears in a reading. Then we'll talk about what each element symbolizes and what the card means when it shows up in both the upright and reversed position in a reading. I'll share some examples from my life so you can relate to the card in a real-world situation. And stay tuned until the end, and I'll give you several questions to help you connect with the card. I will be using the Rider-Waite Tarot in this video. You'll find the link to the deck below, as well as to the many books that I've used in my research. So let's get started. In the Five of Pentacles, we see a man and a woman walking in a snowstorm. They are passing a church with warmly lit stained glass windows that shows 5 pentacles. The couple are looking in different directions and not interacting with each other. The woman has red hair and is wearing a patched orange shawl over her head and shoulders. She is wearing a blue top and a green skirt with black dots. She is not wearing shoes. The male has bandages around his head and feet. He has a bell around his neck. He has on a blue tunic with yellow sleeves and dark breeches. His head and foot are bandaged. He is using crutches. Like the woman, he is not wearing any shoes. It is nighttime and the snow is falling. When the Five of Pentacles appears in a reading, it means that you are suffering from health or financial problems. It means that you are feeling alone, isolated, or excluded. It means that help is available, but you need to ask for it. It can also mean that when you are struggling, you need to connect with your faith, that it's time to come out of the cold and into the warmth, that it is important for you to take care of your health, and finally, that there is always hope. Let's talk about the symbolism in the Five of Pentacles. We see two poor people walking in a snowstorm. They are looking in different directions and not interacting with each other. 5 in tarot is always destabilizing. 4s are very stable. Think about a table with 4 legs. And then 5 is like a curved ball that changes the energy. So here we've moved from this rich guy in the 4 of Pentacles who is surrounded by money to 2 sick and injured poor people walking through the snowstorm in bare feet. The woman has red hair and is wearing an orange shawl over her head and shoulders that has been patched. She is wearing a blue top and a green skirt with black dots. She is not wearing shoes. I'm going to read you Pam Richards' description of the woman and how she interprets this figure. Quote, "She huddles up in her shawl, face down against the cold night air, as she just wishes to get to a better place in her life, away from the coldness of her reality. Yet she cannot see where she is going. Her skirt is green with polka dots, a sign of a fun life, good times, and a time of energy, optimism, and being sociable. She may have overspent and been too optimistic with money in the past and is now suffering the consequences, or simply a time of bad luck. Her blue clothing shows her loyalty and sense of commitment, and the skirt shows a more carefree past where she could do as she wished. She has no shoes, and her right foot and leg are bandaged. Emotionally, she has been hurt or tripped up, and she is now walking without a feeling of attachment to either life, others, or her dreams." Unquote. The man on the left has bandages around his head and feet. He has on a blue tunic with yellow sleeves. He's wearing dark breeches. His head and foot are bandaged. He is using crutches and is not wearing any shoes. I'd also like to share Pam Richards' description of the man because it is so much more detailed than what I can come up with on my own. Quote, "He is wearing either patched up or torn dark indigo trousers, showing his situation is more long-term. The dark color shows he has potential and is earnest as he tries to keep going, but this potential has been damaged and he can no longer rely on it. His tunic is blue with yellow and green sleeves, showing he used to feel trusting, confident, and intellectual. He has a blue band around his hat, so while he seeks security and refuge, there is still a part of him which is hopeful for more. His left foot is bandaged in a thick bandage or plaster cast, showing that as he walks, he does not think of new directions to help his situation. His lower right foot and ankle are bandaged, representing someone who is emotionally hurt and wounded. He is dependent on his crutches to move forward, which can symbolize social assistance, help, and benefits, yet not enough to get him out of this situation. He sees no solution anymore as he is unwell, out in the cold, and in pain. He is unshaven and neglects things which seem unimportant. He gazes into the sky, asking God why he has forsaken him." Unquote. The male has a bell around his neck. This is based on the bells that lepers wore in the Middle Ages to warn people that they were coming. The bell was needed because leprosy often damaged their vocal cords. We see a church in the background. The stained glass window is warmly lit up with 5 pentacles that provide a stark contrast to the frigid temperature, darkness, and snowstorm that are happening outside the church. The 5-pointed star on a pentacle can mean a few things. Most people consider it to mean the 5 elements, which are water, air, fire, earth, and spirit, which is also known as the quintessence. It can also represent the 5 senses or the 5 wounds of Jesus, which is a wound on each arm and each leg and a wound on his chest. The 5 pentacles in the church window show a connection with spirit. One of the interpretations of this card is that the couple could just turn around and see the church and go in for help, but they are so focused on their misery that they don't see a potential solution that's right in front of them. While this may be true for the woman, I don't think it is true for the man. I did some research on leprosy because it is something I know nothing about. I'm linking to an article by Rose Hikeback about leprosy if you would like more information. She explains that although churches often provided charity for lepers, the lepers could not attend services. They had to view the church from a hagioscope, also known as a leper's window, and you can see an image on the screen. This is because the congregation might panic to see the lepers. So while it seems easy to believe that the couple are so focused on their own issues that they are not able to see that help is available, I think that the truth is that they didn't have an option to take them out of the cold. And that makes this card even more bleak. I actually thought a lot about this card, and I think we can all learn from it, that it's easy to make judgments without knowing the whole story. The fact that they are in the snow denotes that they are literally out in the cold and have no other options. The only other tarot card that depicts snow is the Hermit card, which is number 9. I went back to the Hermit card to see what snow symbolized. Here's what it said in the Ultimate Guide to the Rider-Waite Tarot. Quote, "The white snow is an image for healing the earth and revering it from the vantage point where one can review one's life and make peace with oneself, with God, and with all. It also means to have forgotten a part of oneself or an event that lets it freeze over. Finally, snow can be a sign for fulfillment and a new beginning, showing that one has successfully dealt with the problem." Unquote. When the 5 of Pentacles appears in an upright position, it means that you are experiencing hard time. This is Pentacles, so we think of it being about your financial issues, such as a lost job, poverty, or bankruptcy. But this card seems to cover all of the losses: poverty, isolation, illness, injury, homelessness, being abandoned by God, and having no place to get warm. This card can indicate that you feel like you've been abandoned by society. There's nobody taking care of your medical needs. You have no place to live, and you are separated from the church and your spiritual needs. It can mean you feel judged or disapproved of by society. Leprosy causes a lot of disfigurement, so people would have looked on this poor man with horror. It can mean that you're experiencing so many struggles that you can't see a way out. I've had my share of foot and ankle injuries, so I can sympathize with the man in this card. So injuries are bad enough, but it is compounded by having leprosy and being such an outcast that you have to wear a bell around your neck to alert people you're coming, and it's freezing outside and you don't even have footwear. It reminds me of when you're having a pity party and you just sort of spiral because you can't see anything that is right in your life. This card can indicate poor health. Maybe you're not taking care of your body, are refusing to seek medical attention, or are abusing your body with alcohol or drugs. The Five of Pentacles can indicate that you have a scarcity mindset. You are so busy focusing on what you don't have that you're missing what is going well in your life. It can mean that you are feeling unworthy and unloved. We don't know what the relationship is between the couple, but they don't seem to be taking care of each other. The woman is walking ahead of the man and keeping her head down. He looks like he's trying to keep up with her, but his head is facing in a different direction. This card can also mean that you are feeling disconnected with spirit, which is represented by the church alongside them, which they are not looking at. Finally, it can mean that help is available, but you are choosing not to ask for it. Here's an example of the upright card from my life, and it's about making assumptions as to why people don't ask for help. As I mentioned earlier, one of the first meanings of this card that I was taught is that beggars just needed to look up and visit a church for help. So it was interesting to do some research and learn that the people with leprosy weren't allowed to attend church services. And that got me thinking about how we make assumptions about people without knowing all the facts. I'm a member of an app called Nextdoor, which is kind of like Facebook for people who live in the same neighborhood. It's a really great resource if you need a recommendation for a plumber or are curious about what new restaurant is going into the vacant storefront in the plaza. But mostly people do a lot of bitching and complaining about what's going on in the neighborhood. The other day, someone posted a question about this woman who had been begging on the same street corner daily for more than 20 years. I don't think anyone had ever talked to her, but dozens of people responded with opinions about why she was there and why she shouldn't be. One person said that she had a PhD. Someone else said that she earned more than $100,000 a year begging and lived in a mansion. Other people speculated that she enjoyed being outdoors and not having anyone tell her what to do. I have no idea if any of this was true, but it is interesting that everyone assumed that begging was a choice and that she had lots of other options to choose from. I live on Long Island, New York, where it has been ridiculously cold this winter, and once summer arrives, it will be hot and humid. Personally, I find it hard to believe that anyone would willingly stand beside a busy road for 8 to 10 hours a day if they had other options. I feel like that's what people have done with this card. They assume that the couple's problems could be easily fixed if they just turned around and went inside the church, and I'm guessing that it was a lot more complicated than that. When the Five of Pentacles appears in a reverse position, it means that you are recovering from financial losses. You've hit bottom and now things are on the upswing. That your health is improving. That you are reconciling with loved ones or others in your community. That you are feeling hopeful. When you look at this card upside down, you can see that the darkness is falling away. That you're taking actions to keep things from getting worse. For instance, you're overwhelmed with debt and you call a debt consolidation company to ask for help. That you've reconnected with spirit, and that you've decided to ask for help. Here's an example of the reverse card from my life, and it is about people who have no problem asking for help, and a little bit about the judgments I've made about them. My parents are 89 and still living in their own home in a rural area in Canada. They are on an old farm property that was subdivided about 40 years ago, so all of the residents have 1 or 2 acre lots. Around the corner from my parents is the original barn that has been fixed up by someone who I will call Jim for the purpose of this video. Jim has lived in the barn for at least 30 years. He is now in his 60s and has experienced a lifelong battle with alcoholism. Jim does not have a phone or a driver's license. None of the neighbors, except for my parents, will have anything to do with him. He is constantly hurting himself, and he regularly shows up at my mom's door, usually bleeding, and asks her to either tend to his wounds or call an ambulance. Jim has had many roommates over the year, but at some point they will get drunk and fight with each other, and the police will get called. One of the roommates, who I will call Pete, has lived with Jim off and on for the last decade. Pete also has many issues with substance abuse. So yesterday it was the middle of a snowstorm and my mom's doorbell rings. It is Pete and he is sobbing uncontrollably because Jim has kicked him out again. Because the weather was so bad, Pete asked my mother to drive him into the nearest town, which is about 15 minutes away. He sobbed the entire time and then asked to be let out in a community park. It was almost dark, it was below freezing, the wind was blowing off a large lake, and there was a blizzard. So the situation was not unlike the setting in this card, minus the church. My mom offered to take him to a friend's house, but he insisted on being let off at the park. So that's my example of people who don't hesitate to ask for help. I don't want to sound unkind, but I worry about my mom's safety because these guys are usually drunk, angry, and often pretty injured. I am guilty of making assumptions that they just need to get their act together and stop drinking and their lives would be a lot better. Here are some questions to help you connect with the Five of Pentacles. Number 1, do you make assumptions about people who are experiencing hard times? Number 2, where do you turn that provides light in tough times? Number 3, have you ever felt isolated from society? Did you find a way to reconnect? Number 4, have you ever experienced financial or physical problems? How did you turn things around? Number 5, do you offer help to people who need it? And number 6, do you willingly accept help when it is offered? Do you find it easier to help or to be helped? So I hope this has helped you connect with the Five of Pentacles. Please join me for the next video, which is the Six of Pentacles.